Hi, everybody. Welcome to Cal Club's podcast, Wolf Vibes, where we discuss everything and anything that has to do with the role-playing game called Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, I'm Alicia. I'm one of the co-presidents of Cal Club.
Hey, I'm Emma. I am the secretary of Cal Club.
What's up, y'all? I'm Jackson. I'm the other co-president and forever DM.
Yeah. Speaking of, what would you guys describe Dungeons and Dragons as?
It's a lot.
Personally, I think D&D is like a mix of role-playing, improv, and just complete shenanigans. Definitely storytelling is a major part of it also. But in general, I feel like it's, a fun way to connect with friends. And living basically like a fantasy book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like if you want to kind of look at our club's name, Collaborative Authors League, it's really just a bunch of people coming together to make their own story in their own unique worlds that the dungeon master who runs the game made for the players.
It's kind of everything you want from RPG video games without the restrictions of it.
Yeah, it's literally up to the individual to as big as your imagination, If you can think it, you can maybe do it.
So, when people first get into Dungeons and Dragons, the first thing that they tend to do is make a player. So, I think something to talk about is looking at the different races and classes because it can be overwhelming. So, what would you say? Words, What would you say about how do you go about picking a race in the class?
Yeah. First off, I want to point out that in Dungeons and Dragons, race is a little different than we think of it today. It's are you going to be a goblin, an elf, a dragonborn? That's what race is, first off. So personally for me, I create a character that I could see myself being in a fantasy book. So I take inspiration from, reading and movies. So sometimes I want to create a character who's very morally good and just, and that comes out in my character. So I might play an Aesmar cleric, a healing, holy, being. But sometimes I just want to create complete chaos. And that will kind of reflect in the race and class that I choose.
I usually just kind of do whatever I think looks cool. I'm usually just going race, be yeah, that should kind of be cool. That could fit sort of the character vibe that I'm going for.
The first thing, I always pick the race first because I'm just well, not actually, that's not true. When I pick race, I have a really hard time picking more animal humanoid based because I just like looking pretty. I have a really hard time with not looking pretty as a character. But when it comes to class, I just pick one that just sounds like something I want to do. The first class that I ever picked was Druid because I could do magic, but I could also shapeshift, and that just seemed such a cool thing to me. Yeah. So I guess when it comes to picking a race in a class, it's really just up to your imagination, and that tends to be the most overwhelming thing that you come across when doing that. But once the first time's always going to be a hard time. But if on the other hand, if you want to make a character based on stats, which not always the most fun character to make, but definitely makes it easier when coming to choose race and class if you want to make it mesh well, is to look at the racial traits you get, what kind of who gets extra strength because they are just they're dragonborn, they're just naturally going to be stronger people. Who's gonna be more nimble? If you want to be a rogue, you would be a halfling because they're just able to move more quickly because they're smaller. But that doesn't mean you can't be a giant rogue. You can still be sneaky and be a giant.
Yeah.
It's really like there are set rules, but the best thing about D&D is that rules are meant to be broken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of people playing like Loxodon rogues. Like that is an 8-foot tall elephant man, but if you want to make it work, go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
I've heard of people who've played rogues that don't have any proficiency in stealth. They just play orc. They have just plus 20 intimidation. They just say, "You don't see me." That's technically still stealth.
Hey, I play a 5-foot Genasi barbarian, and she's really cool.
And another big thing is when you're making a character, don't feel like you have to make a character based off of like, oh, my character has to do the most fighting stats.
Yeah.
Like, you can make a character that sucks at fighting and literally is like the best florist you've ever met.
Yeah, I mean, my roommate's playing a character who's like all charisma for the most part. We've gotten out of some fights. Sometimes the violence is not always the answer. You don't always have to take the caveman approach.
You know, I think that's one of the biggest things that people like misunderstand about D&D. It's not always about fighting and using your fists to get out of situations. Sometimes it's about talking your way out, seducing your way out, stealthing. There's so many possibilities to get out of a situation. It's not always automatic /kill.
Yeah. For example, Emma and I did a one-shot yesterday, and we got ourselves trapped in a room with this big constrictor snake, and my character had a potion of animal friendship, and I was just like, don't fight him, I got this, we got this. So I drank the potion real quick. Snake boy got mad at me, but then we convinced the snake to let us play a song for him to help him fall asleep. Yeah. And then we escaped. It was great. Mm-hmm. Continuing. Anything else?
Actually, as the Forever DM, I greatly appreciate when my players do find a way other than the caveman approach to their problems. Like we were playing through Lost Mines of Fendover. There was like a giant ghost in the final, dungeon of the game. And it was supposed to be this big fight, but one of my players just started playing a game with the ghost. It's like I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. We just did that 3 times, and the ghost just left. Good times were had by all.
For when you mentally confuse the creature. Mm-hmm. You thought of the wrong number. Oh man, that's fun. Another thing that's as important as just not being in addition to not having to fight constantly, don't be afraid to make a mistake. You do not have to follow by the book. I mean, not to say to completely derail a campaign, because that's not, sometimes a DM's okay with it, but, there's still a story.
Yeah.
There's still a story. But, to just don't be afraid to make a mistake, because the wrong path could lead to the greatest adventure that you guys will ever have and stay in your mind the longest.
Seriously, I don't know, if you're in a fight and you're all out of spell slots and you're a spellcaster, be creative. Do something different than what your stats and what your character sheet says, Have some fun and, try new things. I think, in one of my campaigns, we decided to, one character was on the ground, and the next character decided to, sit on their shoulders and, stand on their shoulders to try to get up somewhere. And, that's a really silly thing to do. But, hey, it worked, and we got through.
One of my most memorable moments is I played a Star Wars campaign over the last year, and me deciding to just be a little dumb with my character that day. There was a zombie just banging his head against this door. So I decided, I'm gonna go up, bang my head against the door with the zombie. And the second I did that, I fell into a trash chute. And then you guys remember that scene, and I don't remember what Star Wars movie it is, but the trash heap just starts to close and it's squish. I literally almost died. I was so close to dying.
Ugh.
But it was so funny. And it was so worth it.
Sometimes I don't want to fight people. I just throw a smoke bomb at their feet and I'll just run away, just giggling all the way.
Yeah.
That was actually from my current character that I'm playing right now.
In addition to just making mistakes, I'll as someone who DMs, and I'm sure you guys can totally like attest to this, I tend to do homebrews. I'm not really one to go by. I'm not really one who does books that often, but like I do not have a plan for the next episode yet. Like I have like a vague idea of like what my players will do next, but like nothing is set in stone. So don't be afraid to ask a question and be like, "Oh, well, I really want to go to this farmer that we went by because he had a really nice cow and I wanted to see if their name was Petunia." Like, and then find out that he was actually just like some like underlord because like the DM doesn't really know what's going to happen in the campaign, and while they have things planned, the best episodes are the ones where the players say the most randomest things and go and do just something that wasn't planned.
Yeah, I find that as a DM, I get most enjoyment out of my character's enjoyment. So if there's a portion of what they're doing that they put a lot of like, I don't know, role play and like effort into, I'll make that a bigger portion of the game than maybe, the other thing I had prepared. I think it's all about like having fun with as a DM and as a player. So if the players are kind of going down one road, it might be good to just derail a couple things and change it around.
And I think that's kind of my biggest problem with Roll20 is that you can't really quickly make a map on the fly in case players do want to go outside the boundaries that you've set for them. Like, it's really difficult to improv and, oh, sorry, I don't have a map for this part yet, so we can't go there.
Yeah, being online for D&D has definitely been a massive change. And I think it's just I think it's made everyone be a little more, on the fly, instead of having a map for everything, maybe describing things, maybe pulling up a picture on your phone and like sending it through, a link so people can see it, and then talking through that. It's just, I think people have to, change their attitude around like having a battle map all the time.
Yeah, my campaign that I did since it was around like September, I had a map, but like I had just taken the map like offline, so like I didn't really pay attention too much to like the details. But one of my players went into this room and they're just like, "What's on the ground?" And I was just like, "What's on the ground?" And I was just like, "It's a necklace." So like I like literally typed in like as they were rolling perception, I quickly went to Google and I was just like, D&D fantasy art necklace, and I found this jaded cat necklace, and like it was such a big moment because the character picked it up, and on the back was like it was catnip backwards. I don't remember how to say it, and like they had to say catnip, and then they turned into a cat, and one of my players they saw Death, but Death was a cat to them, and it was like an orange cat, so this player turns into an orange cat, and the player like flipped out, and was just like, "What's going on?" And it was just, it's a good moment. So like, also like, if you are a DM or you're thinking about DMing, don't be afraid to just like, take a moment to look something up, because the players will understand.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves as a DM. I know I do this. Sometimes it's good just to take a moment, compose yourself, figure out what you're trying to figure out, and come back. It's important.
Is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about in the intro episode? Do you think we explained what Dungeons and Dragons is enough?
I think I kind of failed at explaining Dungeons and Dragons. Can we redo that part?
It's okay.
Yeah.
No one can really, like...
It's hard.
You can really explain. You just kind of learn it. Like, I'm bringing in a new player to my Storm King's Thunder campaign that we're starting next week. And I literally said to him, it's an intimidating and like complex looking game, but you'll figure it out. It's just kind of,
It's really easy to pick up.
yeah, it's one of those things that you can't really explain. It just kind of happens.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is an interactive role-playing game. You play with your friends. There's a lot of role-play, and if you don't know what role-playing is, it's basically you taking on someone else's, personality, character traits, and becoming that person and acting as that person in the game. So everyone will have a character they are, and they will act as that character while doing a series of tasks, battles, fights, and interactions with other people and other characters. And then there's also a DM, the Dungeon Master, or sometimes called the, there's another word.
Game Master.
Game Master, there it is. Game Master. And they're the ones who basically set the framework for the story. They explain what you're looking at. They tell you if you fail or succeed on an action you're trying to complete. And they're the ones who run all the other NPCs, or the non-player characters.
In addition to that, the thing that kind of intimidates people the most is the dice. And the dice is just there to keep the game random and up to chance. And honestly, the only dice you use to do an action, to look around, to move, like pretty much to like do anything besides like damage, you would roll a d20 to see like how well or how bad you do something.
Yeah.
To kind of add on to that, like a lot of people, they are intimidated. It's like, why are there so many dice? Like, what do all these numbers mean? Most characters only use about 3 dice.
If that.
If that.
Yeah, the d20 also, it's a dice that has sides 1 to 20, obviously, and you roll it and say you get a 19. That is probably most likely going to succeed in whatever you're doing because it's a high number. If you get a 2 or a 3, you're definitely probably not going to succeed. That's kind of like where the dice is. And like damage, you roll a 1, that's how much damage you do to someone else. And the other dice are there. Occasionally you'll use them. But also I think mostly they're there because people like me, who I'm a dice goblin, love to collect my shiny math rocks.
And I just want to clarify, damage is what you usually use, like the d4, d6, d8, d10, d12. I think those are the other dice that you can use, you would tend to use.
20.
Also, I think something very important to state about dice is, I didn't know this when I first started playing, and I feel stupid about it now, because it makes a lot of sense. When it says D something, that's the side of the dice. So a D4, that's 4 sides. A D6 is 6 sides. And a D6 is just the normal dice you think about in a normal context. I thought that was important, because like someone pointed that out to me. I was like, that is the smartest thing I've ever heard, and I am so stupid for not realizing that.
And the number before is how many times you roll that dice. So if it was like a 2d4, you would roll a 4-sided dice 2 times, and then add the 2 numbers together.
Also, that might sound really kind of daunting. There are people there who will always help and support you. Your DM will be there to be like, oh, remember to roll that one, or remember to roll this one, or a friend who's been there playing longer. I know I always jump in and help people if they're not so sure on things. It's a very supportive world.
Yeah, that's like a good group is someone who is like, they're always supportive. Like if there's that one player who isn't, you should probably just scrap that player. Just get them out of there.
Yeah.
We don't tolerate people who are mean
Absolutely.
in our club.
No.
You get kicked out if you're mean.
Nope, we are inclusive and loving club. Open for everyone. Thanks for stopping in and listening.
Should we still pose the question? How would you guys explain D&D in 10 words or less? It's hard. It doesn't have to be like, how would you explain it to a newbie? But like, what is D&D to you, I guess, in 10 words or less?
That's hard. Chaotic game of craziness and fabulous fantasy.
That's great. Oh my god. That itself was just chaotic. What about you, Jackson?
Click Clock Math Rocks. All my characters look like edgy anime boys.
And you, Alicia?
I don't think mine's gonna be as funny. I don't know. I just collaborative, obviously. That's where we at.
Yeah.
Making stories
Oh yeah.
together. I don't know how many words that was.
It's alright.
It's okay.
But-
Well, but who cares?
If anybody has any fun ways of describing what D&D is to them, please don't be afraid to send us a video, or audio, words. In addition to that, our social media handles, we have an Instagram and a TikTok for you all to follow. Our Instagram and TikTok have the same handle, right, Emma?
Yep, it is Dean_Cal_Club.
Make sure you follow, like, subscribe. That's YouTube, but I'm stealing it.
Retweet, repost, renew, recycle.
Yes.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
When I was a kid, it was reuse, recycle, renew. I don't know where reduce came from, and it really scared me.
Well,
With that,
thanks everyone for listening. And next week we'll be talking about
what it's like to be a player.
what it's like to be a player. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace out.